Welcome to TRUUU Podcast. I'm your host, Drea.
And I'm Alex.
And this week we are talking about big money purchases in our lives.
Yeah, so, that spans from different things when we were younger to more adult things now that we're older, but we just wanted to explore our relationship with money and how we've learned how to manage all that stuff.
Yeah, so kind of our views, the way we were raised, our experience with credit cards.
Yes.
And yeah, like Alex said, kind of just like where we are today, how we became, quasi-financially responsible adults.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys can relate. Hopefully this is inspiring. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe I hope we're not embarrassing ourselves with like our poor decisions. I don't think we are.
I don't think so either.
I want to say that people would be proud of us.
For sure.
So take a listen, guys. Hopefully you get something positive out of this podcast. How did you view money when you were a child?
So, it was more so an abstract thing, I guess, like, from a fairly young age, I'd say maybe, 6 or 7 or so, I started getting an allowance. It was, a couple dollars.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure what I spent it on, because, I just spent money.
Okay.
For sure, I was the type of kid who, if I wanted anything...
You were like, I'm getting it right now.
Yes.
Okay. Did your parents ever try to instill some sort of savings value in you?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. And it just didn't register at that age?
No, because my need and want for things kind of outweighed that. My older brother and even to his, I think my twin brother as well, they were really good at saving money.
Mm-hmm.
I just never really was. And also because it's important to us as well, my parents also taught us a certain percentage of your money should go to tithing.
Oh, tithing?
Tithing for church.
Oh.
So a certain part should go to saving, a certain part should go to tithing, and
do you want to
left over.
Do you want to elaborate on what tithing is?
So tithing is for members of a church congregation. It's giving a certain percent of your income towards the church, where it goes to all sorts of needs, wherever the church sees fit. If it's within the church itself, it's for outreach, it's for causes they deem to be
necessary, helpful, right?
And yeah, it's a biblical principle to tithe.
How interesting that your parents were instilling that value in you at a young age. Because for us, I don't know that it was called tithing in Catholic Church, but there's definitely a period during Mass where people go around with baskets, and it's donation baskets, and you give money to the church for the same reasons.
Yes.
It probably is called the same thing, but I just didn't know. Whatever. But my parents would always give me and Danielle, whenever that would happen, they would just reach in their wallet and hand us a $5.
Yeah.
And so we'd get to put in a $5. They never for 1 second ever told us oh, save your money for this. They'd give us specific money for it. The moment of here you go.
I forget what exactly the percentage is. I think it's supposed to be 10%.
How interesting.
10% of your monthly earning should go towards tithe.
Is that something that your parents said, or is that something that church says?
That's definitely something that my parents have told me.
Okay.
And we were actually just talking about this in church a little while ago, and for whatever reason, it escapes my mind what they say. But yeah, that's the anything you could really give is what you should give. All
right.
The whole idea is to give back to God and stuff.
Right.
To return the blessing that He has given you.
Not to be a glutton with your money.
Yes. You must store up treasures in heaven, not on earth.
Yes. Anyways, sorry.
Tangent.
Yeah, so I also was not good at saving.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't speak to the level of inability that you had. Mm-hmm. But I want to say that I was relatively not good at it. I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't great. If I remember I used to, and to this day, I have a very, and this is going to sound funny, I have a very mathematical brain, and anyone who knows me is just really, you have? Because I'm not good at math. But numbers wise, even to today, when I know I have to do something, when I have to pay something, I'll always break it down and be okay, if I want to pay it in this amount of months, and like this is how much it costs.
Yeah.
How much do I have to save like each month, each week, like whatever. Like I would break it down to like increments. And that's something I used to do like when I was young. Like
really?
Yeah, which is weird because like you wouldn't think that kids thinking that way. But I did. I definitely would think like, okay, if I save this amount of money every single week for like 2 months, I'll be able to buy this.
You know, that really shows how good you were at getting the end result. Like, I was immediate gratification, you were delayed gratification. Even though you still spent the money, you're willing to put in the forethought to get the better thing, whereas I did not.
Yes, I was always saving towards brat stalls. That was always my goal. But, like, and obviously, those aren't that expensive.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's still, you have to save for it.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway.
So
how much did you get, like, when you were older? How much in allowance did you get?
So I think more towards, like, high school, it was around $20 a week, I think. But I think that also included food. Like, buying food for the week.
At school.
Because I think that we didn't really get... and, like, whatever was left, we could, like, spend towards things. Because how it worked is like I had a bank account during that time. So, like, that... And we'll get into that later. But, like, I had $20 cash the beginning of the week to spend on food for the rest of the week.
Okay.
Which I'm really bad at budgeting out.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I want the immediacy of things, I guess. But we had about $20 worth.
I also, when I was I didn't get an allowance until I went to high school. And then I got $20 a week, which did also include my food. But my mom would also, like, if I ever asked her, like, can you pack me a lunch? She would always pack me a lunch, regardless of giving me $20 for food.
Yeah. I mean, that was always on the table for me as well. I wasn't really good with packed lunches.
Oh, really?
In the sense that, I mean, you knew me, you know, when I was 18.
Right.
And I was much more of a picky eater, you know, back then than I am now. But, like, even more so when I was in high school and younger. Like, I didn't like really sandwiches.
Love sandwiches.
Like, you know, just like a ham and cheese sandwich, I wouldn't have been content bringing that to school.
Really?
Like
when your mom packed your sandwich or your lunch, would she only pack you like a sandwich? That was it?
No. So, like, she'd pack a sandwich, which was usually peanut butter and jelly.
Me too.
And then, like, fruit.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, chips or something.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't get chips, so I get like pretzels.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think also, like, to a certain extent, once I got into high school, like, that was more so... I think that she would pack lunches for us sometimes, so I think that at that point we were told to just do it ourselves.
Just figure it out, for sure.
Yeah, but that's even more of a side tangent. But, you know, back then when I was younger, even, like, it started pretty young where my parents were just like, if you guys want anything, you know, extra superfluous, like anything expensive that's extra, because, like, they got us, like, little things here and there that, like, we wanted.
Yeah.
But, like, if it was a bigger purchase, like a new phone, for example, we had to pay for it ourselves.
Right.
So,
Which it was not the case for my family. Like, my parents, and as we were, like, creating this outline, we were really realizing, like, the differences growing up. And I've said this in our previous podcast, you know, like, I have been given a very privileged life. I by no means am in a rich family, whatever. It's just my parents have been they've made very good financial decisions. So growing up, whenever, like, I wanted or needed anything, whether that be a new phone, like clothes, whatever, like a car, like, they'd get it for me. I was never expected to pay for any of that.
I think the cutoff for me is more so when we were expected to get jobs.
Yeah.
Because basically, once we turned 16, like, the legal age to start working, my parents were like, all right, go get a job.
Which is a really good thing because they really prepared you for the future.
Yeah, so, like, I've been working for, you know, a number of years.
Right.
And, like, earning my own money. And, like, once you start earning your own money, that's, like, when, especially when they were starting, like, if you want anything extra, that's on you.
Yeah, like, you work for it.
So, like, clothes.
And that's, like, the value
shoes,
of the dollar.
that sort of thing. Like, yeah.
That's like, really good.
Yeah.
Really good values.
I wasn't even more so cognizant, though, of my spending until I was in college.
For sure.
More so towards the end and going out of college.
Yes, once you're really financially independent.
Yes, for sure.
But, yeah, when I got into college, when I first got my job... Well, okay, let me start again.
Okay.
The first job I ever got, ever total, was at Raging Waters. And it was literally, I was there for 3 weeks. And it was like it was a summer coming out of high school. And like my parents kept on telling me like every single week, like quit your job, quit this job. And then like I finally quit. And then after that I was like looking at a job at like David's Bridal or something. Mm-hmm. And my dad like literally threatened me. He was just like, if you get a job, I will not pay for your schooling. Like you're going to have to figure it out and pay for yourself. And so I didn't get a job because my parents, it was like, I guess both of our parents were like instilling values into us.
Yeah.
Different values.
Yes.
Because my parents, they were like, education is priority. Like, I don't care. We have enough money to give you. You need to devote yourself entirely to your education.
Yeah. And I don't think, there's no right or wrong in that situation.
Right.
Like, as far as like our parents' intentions,
Yes.
like they're all good intentions. And, I'm not saying anything about that. I mean, I know for me, like the expectation was always to do well in school. Mm-hmm. And then they also wanted us to be really independent in that way of like getting a job. Like,
Right.
Matt got a job right when he was 16.
Mm-hmm.
I got one when I was 17. Only like I pushed off my mom for a year, like getting a job, because I didn't want to do that at the same time as cheerleading. Because at the time, my parents wanted me to do both.
Right.
Or at least pick one. Well, pick a job. Really just pick a job.
Okay.
And if I didn't want to do cheerleading, that probably would have been whatever. Mm-hmm. But like I told her like my entire sophomore year, I guess, because that's when I turned 16. I'm just kind of like, no, it was my junior year actually that I was telling her this. I'm just like, I'm not going to do both. Mm-hmm. That's too much for me to do. So that's actually basically why I quit cheerleading when I did.
For your job?
To get a job.
Oh, wow.
Because like there was, like I was being told all the time, like you need to get a job.
Yeah.
And like the way that my dad grew up, like he was working since he was a child on the dairies. Mm-hmm. And so he never stopped working this entire time. Like that was his expectation, was to work on the dairy every single day. Mm-hmm. Even when he was in school, like in high school and stuff, like he would milk in the morning or whatever and go to school. And then my mom got a job as soon as she was old enough to work.
Right.
And moved out as soon as she turned 18 and then was like supporting herself afterwards. So,
Yeah,
my parents were just like, jobs, y'all.
Yeah,
get
they're
them
just
jobs.
like, you got to get your life together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my parents, I think that probably the reason they chose to go the route that they did was being that they came from impoverished families. Mm-hmm. And they made something of themselves. And like I said, like we're pretty well off.
Yeah.
And they got there through education.
Yeah.
So I think that's where their mentality was going. Just like, you need to focus here because it'll prepare you for later, like
sure.
down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I feel like both like fields of thought had a lot of good value behind them. Very different, but good.
The one thing that,
respects.
Like when we first started like writing this outline for this episode, that was having me like grind my teeth just like the slightest bit. I'm not really resentful towards my parents over this at all. I'm really not. But the fact that both of your cars that you've ever had are gifts.
Yeah, they are.
And I've had to pay for every car I've ever had.
I know. And I feel like a brat. Like I feel like a brat because, and like my parents, here's the thing, is that like my parents are both very frugal people. Mm-hmm. They, like, never in my life, like, there's a lot of kids in my school that were like, I want this car. It's my dream car. And then their parents got them their dream car.
Yeah.
I did not have a choice. It did not matter what car I wanted. It was whatever car was on sale, whatever car they were going to get the best deal on, and that's what I was getting.
But that was still a car.
I understand. But, like, I'm very grateful. I'm extremely grateful to my parents. But, like, they gave me my first car, which was a Nissan Versa, when I graduated high school. And then they got me my now car, which is a Honda CR-V, for a gift when I graduated my master's degree. So they were both like, and the thing is that my parents don't generally get me big things. Mm-hmm. So I guess when you look and you weigh it out through my life, it kind of makes sense.
Yes.
But I mean, yes, I'm very privileged. I know.
I mean, I'm not trying to make you feel some sort of way about it, but like, because my car history, mm-hmm. like the car that I have now, which is a 2005 Corolla, is the newest model car that I've ever had.
Right. And it's a nice car. It's a good car.
With its CD player and crank windows, y'all.
I'm trying to amp it up and you're just like, crank windows.
Like, I have to tell people, like, you actually have to crank it. Mm-hmm. Because people don't know what that means to roll up a window anymore. I do. I for sure know how to physically roll a window, and having to yell at everyone who's ever in my car to lock their doors because they don't have automatic locks.
I know. I'm sorry, Alex. But one day.
One day I'll have a new car.
Anyway, so let's talk about like our banking situation. And we're not giving like financial details, but like we'll go into it. You go first.
So for me, my banking history started pretty early. Mm-hmm. My parents opened a savings account for me when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And they were depositing money in there.
That is fabulous. That is so great.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, really. I could not tell you, like, when I was given the keys to the kingdom, as it were, and when I got, like...
access to it?
Yeah, I have no idea how much was in my savings at that time. It wasn't, like, a ton or anything.
Mm-hmm. But it was something.
Like, maybe, like, $500, but, yeah, like, that's money. Because I think that there's a minimum for how much you're supposed to have in your account, so I think it was whatever the minimum was, maybe. Okay. But anyway, so, first savings account at 10 years old, first checking account when I was 15, mm-hmm. and I was expected to, like, I had a debit credit card.
Okay.
Like, it did both. And I had to always charge credit. Like, that was what I was told to do.
So crazy. That's so crazy. Okay,
which,
go on.
You know, back then, I had no earthly comprehension of what the difference was. Like, I remember asking my mom, like, a few times, like, which one am I supposed to do again? Mm-hmm. And, like, having her try to explain to me what the difference was, and I just was not understanding it.
Right.
At all. Right. Which, you know, to me now seems like the most ridiculous thing ever to be confused about, because I'm just like, so obvious now. But, so started using a credit card when I was 15. Mm-hmm. Because my parents wanted me to build credit.
See, and I'm saying that this is so crazy because of my experience, which I'll get into after you. I don't want this to come across as I'm being like, Alex's parents are so crazy for saying that. Quite the contrary, and I will explain why later.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was doing a credit card pretty young. Mm-hmm. I was told only to use my, like, the debit part for, obviously, the ATM. Right. Because that's what you have to do.
Right.
And then for gas.
Good.
That was really it. I didn't take... Well, and it wasn't like an independent account or anything, because you can't do that for kids. Like, It was linked to my parents' account. Like, even then, the checking account was. Yeah. Because why would any bank believe that a 15-year-old can do this on their own?
Yeah.
So, and, like, back then, like, my mom was making the payments to, like, pay back on the credit card.
Okay. Oh, she was, like, doing it for you.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that she was doing it probably with my own money.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, because I was 15 and wasn't working at that point. I don't know. No, it's probably my own money. It's probably from, like, my savings or something. Maybe. Okay. But anyway, like, when I was 18, that's when my bank account was able to split off from my parents. And technically, I was in charge of it then, but I was really lazy, and I didn't want to deal with it.
So you just had your mom do it still?
So, yeah, I just had my mom do it.
Yeah.
Until probably, like, my sophomore or junior year in college. Okay. Where she was just kind of, like, finally fed up, like, hey, you need to take care of this. This is your thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I had been working for years, and I think it was about around the time that I started working at Fox as an intern that she just kind of like, you deal with this.
Get it together. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then, like, one thing that was, like, a really big thing that my parents tried to, like, ingrain into me and my brothers about our bank accounts was always put money in your savings and treat your savings like it's not there.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to take any money out of it. Just
Absolutely.
leave it there. Only pretend like you have your checking.
Yeah.
So ever since, like, I started really being cognizant of that stuff, which was later college, I always had a buffer of a certain amount of money, my checking account. Mm-hmm. And if I got too close to that number, to me, I was broke. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't go below that number. Mm-hmm. So, like, in college, like, I had money to play around with, and, like, you guys knew this. Like, I was trying to get you guys to go out all the time.
I went out with you.
Yeah, you did. Not anyone else did, because they were, like, for reals broke, where I'm just kind of like, I always had a certain amount of money in my bank account.
Right.
Always.
Right.
Or else I'd feel really uncomfortable. And to this day, I'm that way.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah. My buffer amount has definitely raised since then.
Absolutely.
Because I'm making adult money.
Yeah.
But I won't ever go below that amount. I haven't, and I don't even remember how long.
So, completely different from your experience. My mother literally put the fear of God into me and my sister in terms of banking and credit accounts. Mm-hmm. She was, like, so convinced that if we got a credit card, we would completely go haywire and not have any sense of like what it meant, and just completely go like super in debt and then have terrible credit scores.
Do you think she was right in believing that way?
When we were younger. But I'm saying like this went into college. Yeah, so like Danielle and I, like we didn't get our first credit. Well, let me start here first. I got my first bank account, like checking bank account, in 2014. So that is my junior year of college, my senior year of college. No, sophomore.
Whatever. It was your sophomore year.
My sophomore year of college.
It was our sophomore year of college.
The end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year. Well, senior year for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I only got it because I got my first real job, which was at Sport Chalet. Haha, because they don't exist anymore. And I was also coaching, so I just needed something to have a direct deposit going into.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, in 2015, is when I got my first credit card. Mind you, my sister got her credit card after I did, and she is 4 to 5 years older than me.
I mean, I feel like for that time, I didn't realize it then, but that was like pretty normal.
Is it?
Well, because I feel like none of you guys, for the longest time, none of my friends when I was in college had credit cards. Yeah. I thought it was the most mind-blowing thing ever, because like I had a checking account for almost a full 10 years before you got one. So like to me, it was nuts that none of you guys had one, but then I felt like it took forever for anyone to get one.
I don't know.
So I think that you were the first friend that I had in college who got a credit card.
Maybe. I don't know. My parents were just they were just worried that we wouldn't be like responsible enough.
I mean, rightfully so, because credit card debt is nothing to play with.
For sure. And like, you know, once I got it, like I was so paranoid about it that like I like always paid it in full because I was just like, I can't fall behind, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, it worked to an extent. When I like got that bank account in 2014, obviously I was above the age of 18, but my mom still put herself as like a joint owner, accessor or something to my account, just so she can like monitor it, make sure everything's okay, which I had no problem with. But she literally still has that access to today.
Do you still use that account?
Yeah. It's my main bank account. Yeah, that's like where my mortgage comes out of and everything.
That's really funny.
Yeah, and honestly, like I feel like some people, like when I tell them that, they like look at me some sort of way, and I'm like, it is so much easier, because if I ever need my mom to like take money out of my account or move money into my account or anything, like I'm just like, here, just do it for me. And she's like, no problem, and she like goes online.
I mean, that's the thing too. Like people would look at you weird, but you know, you have that kind of trust with your mom that she's not going to like abuse your finances.
No,
like
never.
Your parents are very trustworthy. They wouldn't do that sort of thing. So like I can understand that. I mean, it is a little strange, but I mean, you do you.
Yeah, it probably would be strange for a lot of people who don't have, like, if anything, my mom would be funneling money into my account as opposed to like funneling money out of my account.
Because believe me, if my mom could do that, like for the monthly like stuff I pay her, I'd love it. I'm just like,
right?
Please
it's
just take it from me.
Oh my god, it's so convenient.
Because I forget.
Exactly. Or like I'll like be too lazy to go to the ATM. You know, it's so much easier.
Because I'm really good about paying my bills because I have 2 credit cards.
Yeah.
I always pay them early. I always pay them off in full. But for whatever reason, the money I owe her monthly, which really just is for my phone because we're still on the same phone plan.
Yeah.
I cannot remember.
For sure.
To pay her.
Yeah.
Like, right now, thinking about it, because it's the last day of this month, I need to pay her for the month of June.
Funny. Yeah, so like that is like our history with banking. And so that leads us into our first large purchase. What was yours?
So my first like really independent large purchase was my first MacBook, which is I bought this back in 2014, and it cost around $1,400.
Which is quite a substantial purchase.
Yes, so I mean, part of it was a cosmetic purchase for me because I really loved Macs.
Right.
And all Apple products. Yeah, exactly. So it felt very foreign spending that much money because like a part of me, you know, making my own money, and that's the only thing I have to spend. Like it made me not want to buy what I considered to be kind of like not important things. Like I would spend my money all day on food, which is what I did do. But like the thought of spending something like that much money on a computer was kind of like mind-blowing to me a little bit and made me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like it took me a while of having that to feel good about it as well.
Yeah, sure.
Because also at the time I wasn't fully in charge of my bank account yet, in the sense that like I hadn't taken control away from my mom yet, because she was more than willing to give it to me.
Yeah.
So like,
did you feel like guilty if she were to see the purchase?
No, she knew about it.
Oh.
So what started this particular habit for me, which I do all the time now, is I bought this for myself for my birthday when I turned 20.
Okay.
And like, there's only a certain amount of money that my parents are willing to spend on, you know, presents, which rightfully so. Like, they're not going to buy me a computer.
A car.
Yes.
Okay.
They're not. You already know this. They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So basically what it was, like, they gave me money that's supposed to be like towards
the computer.
Okay. But really what it is I bought the computer with my own money, and the money that they gave me for, you know, the computer was to let me live for the rest of however long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that, it's actually been that way for the past ever since, really. Anything that I want that is more expensive than they're willing to pay for, I pay for it myself, basically. And they give me money to live.
Yeah, they give you
money to
whatever
exist.
they feel is appropriate. For sure.
I mean, yeah, so it took me a while to feel good about that purchase, really.
Yeah. I mean, it was necessary. Like, you know, you need a laptop in college.
Because I had, truthfully, what my first big purchase was actually our freshman year of college.
Okay.
I paid to fly my then boyfriend down to come visit.
Yeah.
So that's what really cleaned me out back then. So like it was only like a year or so afterwards that I got this computer. So I was really just feeling like uncomfortable about where my finances were.
Right. Yeah. On the flip side, the first larger purchase that I would consider for myself was definitely not to the level of a MacBook. It was probably more to the, you know, like you flying out your ex. But it was a Disneyland pass. And it was the Southern California pass back in 2012, which at the time ran, and this is trippy, at the time ran for $329, which is a steal
It
today.
really is.
And I paid for it in full because I did not have a bank account at the time. So I couldn't do it in installments.
Wait, so what did you just pay for it with, like, cash?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I saved up for that and I paid for it. And because me and my ex, Kenny, we used to go to Disneyland all the time. All the time. And so that was like something that I was just like, I really want this, la la la.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, and so like that was like pretty much the big purchase that like transformed me into a financially capable adult.
So it's after this point, really, that you and I guess, start to switch places on, like, the bigger purchase sort of stuff.
Right.
Because, like, this brings us a little bit to, well...
And not so much switch places.
Yeah.
But I think mine just... They're just consequentially larger.
Yeah. Well, I think more so, I guess what I mean is that, like, you know, one could argue that I had a lot of experience, like, managing money, like, from when I was younger.
Yeah.
But you very quickly caught up to me in that sense. Like, ever since I've known you to have, like, responsible spending habits and stuff, and you responsibly manage your money. So, like, at this point is, like, really where I think you and I level off in that area.
It was like...
Yes, exactly.
I've caught up.
So, larger purchases after that were mostly my cars. Technically speaking, my first car, which was a Nissan Maxima.
Nissans.
Me and my twin brother had split the cost of that.
Okay. So did you share the car?
Yes. So how it worked was when we started off driving, we were using my older brother's Chevy S10, and my older brother had bought the Maxima.
Okay.
Then we jointly bought the Maxima from my older brother when he got his newer car, which was a Mazda. So then me and Jake split the Maxima, but Jake was driving the Chevy, and I was just driving the Maxima for, like, the longest time. And then they came to the point where everyone had to settle their debts with each other.
Okay.
And then, so I bought out my twin brother for the Maxima, which was like $1,000 or $2,000.
Okay.
And then he had to pay off Matt for the S10. So basically it was like funneling money through my brother just towards my older brother.
That's what I was about to say. I'm just like, why didn't you just give it to
That was the argument back in the day. But
Really?
Jacob really wanted to have his hands on the money, even if it was for a little amount of time. But like that's actually an argument I brought up back in the day. I'm just kind of like,
funny.
shouldn't I just be paying Matt?
That's so funny. I like triggered something in your family.
That's exactly what it was. So then after that, when I was a junior in college, my Maxima got totaled while I was at work. So like I like get off of work and I go to the parking lot and I see that my car has been sideswiped.
That's so messed up.
And back then, at the time, like my car was worth basically nothing. Mm-hmm. It was totaled
Fixing
right away.
It was not.
Fixing it was, there was no point, and like a certain part of the damage like made it not super safe to drive.
Yes.
So I very quickly had to
come up with a different option.
Yeah. So luckily, the person who sideswiped me had left a note on the car.
Oh, good.
Because it was actually like it was around 4th of July, so around like the time that we're at now, and
oh wow, anniversary.
Yes.
Your car getting totaled.
Yes. So it was actually one of those fireworks trucks, the ones where you buy fireworks from.
Yeah.
The firework truck had sideswiped me, and luckily, since like they have like insurance for that and stuff, like they had left a note. We ended up getting about $2,000 from them, and to like help out with that. Like my dad negotiated that whole thing. So the mom of my mom's coworker was selling her car at the time. Like it just happened to be like around that time she was selling her car, which was the Corolla that I have now. And like it was really low mileage for being 2005 in really good condition. And so my mom was just like, this is probably the thing. This is the one. Like I remember I was at Buffalo Wild Wings and she emailed me pictures of it. And she's like, we should probably jump on this. And I'm just like, yeah, great. Let's do it.
Perfect.
So I ended up buying the Corolla for $4,000. Although I didn't actually technically pay for it myself. My parents bought it because I didn't have that kind of money.
Right.
And then I gave them $2,000, the $2,000 that I got from,
Your
my other car.
Right.
So I gave them that. And then I paid monthly payments for them for the next 2 years. So I paid off that whole thing. And then the next, technically, big purchase kind of after that, the biggest thing I paid off was my student loans.
Which is big.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like, I would say I haven't met anyone aside from yourself and myself at our age that have finished paying off their loans.
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to have parents who were just kind of like, hey, like, move back home after you graduate, and then don't worry about, like, food, don't worry about rent, don't worry about any of that, just
pay it off.
Focus on paying off your loans.
Yeah.
I paid off $26,000 worth of loans in a little under 2 years.
I was about to ask him like the time frame.
Like
that's
a
pretty
hair
impressive.
Under like 9 or so, like a year and 9 or 10 months.
That is very impressive. To this day, I'm amazed.
I worked very hard.
Yeah.
To do that. Like I was paying like almost $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Towards my loans for the longest, and then once it got so close, I just started paying more and more. So like I had to budget my life
around that,
which is okay.
Honestly, it's so smart though, because now that is not something you think about at all.
Yeah, I absolutely would not have been able to do it without my parents letting me live at home.
Absolutely.
I would still be paying off my loans for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Very fortunate. Yeah. Also, like real quick, which I feel like you really have set me up to sound like a big brat on this podcast. Because I was like suffering. I was just like, I have $10,000 worth of loans, which is it's so stupid compared to the amount that you had. And in addition to that, when I hadn't started paying off my loans because I forget what it's called, like a subsidized loan. And so what that is like when you're going to school, it doesn't start accruing interest until you're out of school for like 10 months. And so since I had gone to get my master's degree right out of college at Laverne, it had like my clock hadn't started ticking. So once I finally graduated, and I think there's like a 3-month like grace period or something like that, I looked at my loan amount like when I graduated, and it was $10,000. And then like when the like grace period ended, I went to pay it. Like I wanted to pay my loan like in full. And when I looked at it, it was only $5,000, which to this day, I have no clue what happened. Really? I remember at the time there was like all this like propaganda media stuff saying that the Obama administration had like forgiven some sort of like loans. Mm-hmm. And this happened to me, and there's no proof that like Obama did this, but hashtag my president coming through for me.
I can't even think. Well, I mean, I can think I would have had, about $20,000 that I don't have now. Mm-hmm. If only.
Yeah. It was, I don't know.
I could pay $5,000 a month.
It was amazing. It was like, and also, and for like a second, I thought like maybe my mom just paid this off without me knowing. Mm-hmm. But then I told my mom about it, and like my mom would definitely tell me if she paid it off for me.
She's a straight shooter.
Yeah, like she'd be like, yeah, I paid it off for you. No, I asked her, and she was just like, didn't you have 10,000? And I'm just like, yes. Why is it only showing 5,000? Like we were both like so confused. And I don't know. To this day, I don't know. But I ain't complaining.
I tell you what, if that would have been me, I would have been living in all different kinds of paranoia. That I just like it was somewhere
that it was gonna like pop out of nowhere.
Accruing interest because I had 8 different loans.
For sure.
2 a year, and they all had varying interest rates. So I'm just kind of like that would stress me out.
Yeah, truly. I was also really lucky. I like just had so many grants and like scholarships going into Liverin that like I didn't come out with a lot of debt.
So after that, for me, like my big focus was I'm still living at home, but instead of since I'm not making loan payments anymore, mm-hmm. I'm saving up to buy a house.
Right.
Because
which is a smart thing to do these days.
Yes. So like I spent a long time like hearing my parents say the importance of like that sort of thing, like you would set yourself in a really good way if you could just buy a house.
Yeah.
So they're just like, hey, continue living at home, same conditions, but save to buy a house.
Yeah. They have your best interest in mind.
They do. And like, I'm trying my best to listen to the advice of people who are older than me because they probably know something.
Right.
I don't have to agree with everything, but it's kind of like,
they know
that's
something.
A sound advice to be like, be a homeowner.
Yes.
That sounds great. I mean, the only other big thing I bought afterwards is my bedroom furniture that I have right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know for sure, but I think it was around the total like retail on it was like $3,500 or $3,600. Mm-hmm. And I negotiated them down to a little over $2,800.
Which is pretty good haggling, in my opinion.
Because it was for some sort of sale that was going on.
Okay.
Or whatever. I think it was a Labor Day sale
for sure.
Last year. Mm-hmm. Because it was around my birthday, actually. Like, it was my birthday present to myself to buy myself new furniture.
Okay.
No, my birthday present to myself was buying a TV, actually.
Oh, yeah, it was.
But a month before, I bought my new furniture. And I negotiated them down. And it was a really proud experience for me, being able to do that. Because I was, like, there with my parents. And, like, they were like, this is your thing. Like, you need to, like, do it.
Yeah.
And I told the lady straight up, I'm just kind of like, this is what I want. But I'm not willing to pay more than $3,000 to buy it.
Yeah.
Because, like, she wanted me to, like, they want you to buy a mattress and stuff. And also, they were like, oh, I'll give you this really good deal on the furniture, like 50% off on all the furniture if you buy a mattress.
Yeah.
Which I'm just kind of like, it's not really helping you if you're spending a lot more money than you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because, like, at that point, like, I had a pretty good savings, and this was going to be coming out of my savings. Mm-hmm. Because I saw it as a future investment.
Yes.
So, like, I just wouldn't budge on it. I'm just kind of like,
and she was like,
she kept like doing like different like numbers, like discounts and whatever. She kept just lowering it, and she's like, well, what about this? I'm just like, I'm not willing to pay more than $3,000. Like, I told him like I want to buy it, but I'm just kind of like, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, we'll just go.
Yeah.
So she, ended up talking to her manager a couple times, and then she
finally was just like, okay, you
so she's like, this is the best we can give you, and it was a little bit over 28. I'm just like, perfect.
Yeah, you're like, fine, I'm out.
Yes. So I'm just kind of like, all right, sign the deal.
Nice.
And I feel really good about that purchase.
Nice. And those are good. I feel like those are very good purchases as an adult. Like, yes. All of them were necessities.
Yes.
It wasn't just frivolous. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, like, I feel like my big purchases started really snowballing after I met my husband.
Yeah.
Because I didn't meet him, but, like, when we got together, I think it was literally like 2 months after us dating that we decided to move in together, which sounds outrageous, but I mean, we're married, so I think it's fine.
Yeah. Ended up okay.
It ended up okay. But I guess like when you just meet the right person. Anyways, So we got an apartment, plus there was a deposit that we had to give them, which I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. Like, all of a sudden, we were, like, financially responsible for, like, this monthly payment, which I had never lived anywhere other than, well, I guess, I lived at the dorm, but that doesn't really count because I wasn't paying for it. I never really lived anywhere where I was paying for rent before this. So it was kind of crazy. And then on top of that, we ended up getting my dog.
Yeah.
And she's a pug. So we paid, like, $600 for her because...
She's a purebred pug.
I don't know.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. I know there's that whole propaganda of, like, don't shop, adopt, And
Yeah.
I'm totally for it. I love dogs. I love, like, little mutts. But I've always had my heart set on pugs. And so Aaron found this family who had bought Choco from a breeder, but that they didn't want her anymore. So they were,
That's
like,
so
giving
sad.
her up. Yeah, so I'm just like, I will take her. So in a sense, I adopted because she was unwanted. But, we had to pay these people $600 for her. So that was also kind of, like, hefty, all things considered. And then shortly after, it was, like, before the year was up with our apartment, we purchased a house. So we purchased our house. The purchase price was $530,000. And obviously a significant amount is a loan. But on top of that, we also spent $100,000 renovating our house. Because when we got it, it was literally falling down. Like, we have a big house. Like, it was a 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. But the structural integrity was trash.
And that was a loan too, right?
Yes. So we got a construction loan to do that. Also, my parents, like, helped us out with a portion of it. And we owe them. So, like, we owe, like, a certain amount of money to my parents.
Yeah.
And obviously to, like, the bank.
Yes.
And so, like, with that, I'm now paying, like, $2,000 a month. And on top of that, we have, like, homeowner's insurance, and we have, like, home warranty, and then we have, like, all the subsequent repairs and just, like, everything that we want to do in our house and furnishing it.
Yeah.
So, and, like, gardening, whatever. It's just so many expenses piled up. And then on top of that, right after we got our house, Aaron proposed to me.
Yeah.
So there he is purchasing my ring, which was $2,000. And then when I went to get my wedding dress, I literally, the first day I went shopping for a wedding gown is the day that I got my wedding gown. Like, I found one that I was just like, you know what? I like it. I'm going to get it. Here's my money. And I paid for it in full that day, which was $1,200. And later that day, we had an appointment with our venue to book it. So we had to give them a deposit, which was $2,000.
You were just spending at the nose during this particular point in time.
I was literally just shoveling this money out. And on top of that, I had probably like a solid like $3,000 to $4,000 like left in my checking account. So like, I don't know how, and I always talk about this because I'm like, I don't know how we were so balling in money, because now where is that money? But like at that time, we like just had this money to spend, which is good because it was the time period that we needed to be spending this. And then obviously shortly thereafter, I had my wedding.
Yeah. Which
for the venue alone, it was around $13,700. And obviously we didn't have to pay that until like a year and a half later, because that's when that was like the final date after from when we like booked it.
Yeah.
So I was like I told you, I always like have a method of like, okay, if I need to spend this much in this amount of time, I have this many months, what do I have to save each month?
Yeah.
So I saved it. But I also had to pay $1,200 for photos, $600 for the DJ, $437 for the floral, and then about like $300 for like the hair and makeup, and also $300 for my bridal shower, or my bridal gifts to like my bridesmaids and everything. So out the door at the end of the day, and this is not including like the alteration I did to my dress or like little things that like insignificant, it was around like $16,500 that I spent just on my wedding, which is so little for a wedding, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't know.
So
I'll take your word for it.
That's my point, is that it's so much freaking money for one day.
I guess that makes sense, because I think you had told me once, like, about your sisters.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure my sister's was like $17,800, 18, maybe 20. Like it's in the range from 17,000 to 20,000 that my sister paid. And hers is like more in like the like lower mid range of weddings, I would say.
I have such separation anxiety with money. That I'm just like hearing this is like stressing me out.
It's so incredibly ridiculous, especially going through it at a young age and paying for it entirely like on my own.
Yeah.
It's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary to have all this like crap for one day, basically, you know?
Yeah.
But honestly, when I think back, I don't regret it. Like, I'm so happy I had my wedding. I'm so happy I had those memories.
Like, it was a great wedding.
It was fantastic. But then when I look at how much I spent, I'm just like, oh, God. But, you know, it is what it is. When you're an adult, you got to pay for these things. You just got to bite the bullet and shovel the money out to the vendors.
So, all in all, after, you know, all the history and all the things, you and I have learned in our different ways to be financially responsible adults.
Right.
You know, we might not be, like, we're not rich or anything.
Oh, God, by no means.
But, you know, we are able to take care of ourselves, and I feel like that's a really big accomplishment sometimes for people our age.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think because of our upbringing, we are where we are.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah, because if it weren't for my parents instilling, like, these values of, like, you need to save, you need to allocate your money to, like, the necessities first.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I probably wouldn't handle my finances the way I do now.
For sure. I mean, me especially, like, all I've ever done, really, in the past 5 or 6 years or whatever is, like, try to learn how to save successfully.
Yeah.
And it's become a lot more second nature since I graduated from college because, like, that's just what I had to do in order to pay off my loans.
Yeah.
And I really want to be able to buy a house before I turn 30.
Which is a really realistic and good goal to have.
Yeah, like, I'm hoping within the next, like, 2.5 to 3 years to have achieved that.
Yes.
And I think that it's actually feasible, and that in and of itself is mind-blowing and something really to be proud of. Like, you know, that's really, like, more so, like, what I learned from this whole thing is I really like to be financially independent. I like to be able just to pay for whatever, you know, I need to do or whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
It feels good to be that way.
Yeah, I would say for me, I feel like my whole life I've been really trying to, like, grow up.
Yeah.
And, like, just, like, you know, as fast as possible, I want to be independent. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I feel like now that I'm there where I am entirely independent. Obviously, if I needed help, I can go to my parents. But I am, like, financially, responsibly, whatever, independent. And I hate it. Like, I wish I could go back and just savor those years that my parents were just like, if you get a job, like, we're not paying for you, you know? Just, like, I wish I can go back to those days where I could just, like, rely on my parents to handle everything and not have to worry about it.
You know, it's so funny because I was just, like, talking about this with my mom the other day, like, where I was at, you know, the party a couple weeks ago with some people I knew from sorority and whatever. And, like, they were talking about, man, like, I don't want to be an adult anymore. I just want to turn back the clock.
Yeah.
And I told her straight up, I'm just kind of like, I would not change anything about, like, where I'm at. Like, I would not want to go back to where I was before. Because I'm just kind of like, you know, I don't, like, spend a ton now. But whenever I want to treat myself to something, I can.
You can.
Which I've never been able to do in my life before, you know, my mid-20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like, you know, I just bought myself a purse a little while ago. I used it for both days this weekend, and it was fabulous.
Yeah. It's, you know, I feel like you have such a positive outlook on this. I have such a cynical outlook because I'm just like, man, it sucks to be an adult.
We are in two different situations, though. I am very blessed to be in a situation where I'm being allowed to save a bunch of money.
Right, right.
Whereas, you know, you're running a household.
Yeah.
You know, you own a business.
Yeah,
you're just in a different space than I am. So
money is flying out of me faster than it's coming in.
I mean, I guess the good takeaway is, you know, you learn your good habits younger, and it really pays off.
Yeah.
When you get older.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's never too late to start changing your habits for the better too.
Yeah. Turn it all around.
Allocating, budgeting. It's important.
It really is.
Financial freedom. That's the real goal.
It really is.
Anyway.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode of TRUUU Podcast. We are still actively thinking of cool things that we want to talk about. So tune in next week for whatever that is.
See ya.